Hello folks, this is Ayatan Ajha from InspiredRise.com and today we are going to talk about the state of 4G in India. So guys, 4G has been picking up pace in India since past few months, and many players like Airtel, Vodafone, Reliance and even now Idea has been coming up with plans to come up with 4G services in India. Right now there are few major spectrum bands in India regarding the 4G frequency, mainly the 1800 MHz band, you have the 2300 MHz and the 850 MHz band. The 2300 MHz band is the band 40, which is being used currently by Airtel in few circles, and apart from that we have the 1800 MHz band, which is the band 3 and which is being used by Vodafone, claiming it to be superior than Airtel, and Airtel also has some of these frequencies. And you have the 850 MHz, which is owned primarily by Reliance Jio, which hasn't yet launched for consumers as of now. The 850 MHz on a spectrum basis is somewhat better than the 1800 MHz and comparatively better than 2300 MHz. So let's just talk about the difference in these frequencies. So as we know and as science says, frequency is directly proportional to energy. The more the frequency, the more the energy, but frequency is inversely proportional to wavelength. So in case I have a 2300 MHz signal, it has a higher frequency, it would have higher energy, but it won't have that much wavelength. So for a 2300 MHz wave, I would need more repeaters, more towers, etc. everywhere, and this would significantly drive up the production costs and the costs of operating 4G network. Compared to this, the 1800 MHz won't require so much towers, so much repeaters, because of the fact that it's a longer wavelength and you won't need so much repeaters, and signal attenuation will be less because the frequency is comparatively less, wavelength would be much higher than that. And talking about that, the band 5, 850 MHz, which is the main spectrum for Reliance Jio, that is comparatively better because of the fact that frequency is less and you have a higher wavelength which would travel more distance without attenuation, and at this frequency level you are providing LTE, which is long-term evolution network. So this goes on to show that these networks are somewhat better than the already existing ones. Let's just talk about why 2300 MHz network won't be that much successful in a country like India. This is because of the fact that a country like India does not have glass buildings. Talking about foreign countries, USA, Europe, etc., they have a lot of glass buildings. So in glass buildings, the 2300 MHz signal can easily propagate, whereas in India we have all concrete, cement, brick buildings, wherein the 2300 MHz signal would attenuate very easily. So we need a signal which is higher in wavelength and maybe lesser in frequency, but still gives you that 4G experience. If we are talking about the spectrum, let's just talk about the 700 MHz band, which would be auctioned now. Right now every player is showing interest in it, but the base price of this spectrum is so high that no one is actually willing to pay that much price for that spectrum. Now let's just talk about phones that support 4G. You need to buy a smartphone which supports all 4G bands these days in order to have a seamless experience. Talking about these, the iPhone 6s supports almost all bands depending upon if you have the unlocked edition, and the cheapest 4G phone is the Lenovo A2010 and the ZTE Blade, which offer a cheap 4G experience at around 4000 to 5000 rupees, and they also support many bands. The ZTE Blade also supports the band 5 850 MHz, and Reliance also has launched its life range of phones which work with their Jio network seamlessly. While buying a 4G phone, always check for band 3, band 5 and band 40 support, because most of the Chinese manufacturers don't understand the Indian market correctly, so they haven't included all of these bands on most of their smartphones. So in some smartphones you would find that the band 5, which is the 850 MHz band which would be used by Reliance Jio, has been skipped, and only few smartphones exist which support all of these major bands. Reliance Jio has spectrum in the 800 MHz or 1800 MHz in almost 20 out of 22 circles in all over India, so that makes it almost a pan-India 4G operator. Bharti Airtel has the 1800 MHz spectrum in around 14 circles out of total 22 circles in India, and they had 2300 MHz spectrum earlier in a wide variety, but still they are now shifting primarily towards the 1800 megahertz spectrum, and it is clear that they will use that one for a long period of time. Band 1 is 2100 megahertz and band 8 is 900 megahertz, and Vodafone is considering them to use for 4G, and only time would tell how they would fare. Voice over LTE support is another major feature for 4G, which is being touted as one of the game changers in voice technology, as you would have a very high sound quality and lower call rates because of the fact that 4G networks can carry a lot of data very easily. And let's just talk about normal 4G networks and those phones which do not support VoLTE. How do they work? So those phones which do not support VoLTE, they switch back to switch circuit networks whenever you are making a call. Those networks are inefficient, and in case you have a smartphone, when you place a call, it's not actually using the 4G network for calling. Only Reliance would have the VoLTE support, and few phones like the Coolpad Note 3 Lite, which would soon have VoLTE support via OTA update, and few other phones support VoLTE to a very nice extent. And when you get that, it would be a very nice audio experience, and you would experience even lesser call drops. The ZTE S6 Blade, Eureka Plus, and the latest iPhones and few other smartphones are those phones which support voice over LTE. And in case you're out to buy a new smartphone, do make sure it supports all of the bands. It supports voice over LTE. A lower frequency band is ideal for a country like India, as it allows deeper penetration and longer coverage over a certain region. And many operators by default don't allow all of the bands in their smartphone enabled, and this is an issue, and this is often done by operators to make sure that if someone buys a smartphone in a particular country, they are able to use only the bands in that country. For example, Samsung Galaxy S5 was one of those phones which supported almost all of the LTE bands, but the caveat here is that when it was sold in UK, they had limited the bands to UK via software. The hardware does support all of the bands, but via software they had limited the bands. So there is a fix to it, but it requires rooting your smartphone, and it requires doing certain things which the smartphone manufacturers don't want you to do. So that's dangerous waters in which we are treading, and that's something that we would advise you to do at your own risk. All Samsung 4G phones support the band 5. Lenovo A2010, OnePlus X, OnePlus 2, Moto X Play, Moto X Style, Nexus 6P, Nexus 5X, Lumia 640 XL, Lenovo A2010, Lenovo A6000, and Intex Aqua Ace, iPhone 6, iPhone 6s. These all support the band 5 LTE. Let's talk about where do we see 4G 1 year from now. So 1 year from now, if we live in an ideal world, almost all of the operators would have rolled out their respective 4G networks. So giving out to the fact that there would be a massive competition among them to gain 4G users, we can expect cheaper call rates, and we can also expect maybe better data packs. And when the game really heats up, right now we have only one viable alternative to use 4G, which is Airtel 4G. Even Vodafone 4G, which rolled out just recently, hasn't seen major adoption yet because of the fact that it has just been rolled in Gurgaon, and it would go on to be rolled on in Delhi, NCR, Mumbai regions, etc. over a long duration of time. Reliance Jio would also take some time. Idea has plans to come up with 4G, though it would take time. Aircel and many other operators would also take time to come up with their own 4G network. So maybe 1 year from now, things would be different, and almost everyone would be on 4G networks. So guys, do let us know in the comment section below what do you think about the state of 4G in India. In case you found this video informative, and in case you want us to continue with more future videos like this, then don't forget to hit the thumbs up, and don't forget to share this video, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. This is Aditya Naja from InspiredWise.com signing off, folks. And before you go off, we would just like to remind you of all the latest videos that we did just maybe in this past few weeks. You can check out our Zenfone Zoom slow motion video sample. You can also check out our LE1S review and few other interesting videos which we did in the past few weeks. So guys, this was all for today. Have a nice day.